Last time you came here, we had so much fun, and I thank you for being here. And then a few weeks later, then you announced your divorce.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing all right. And I want to say thank you for not trying to bring it up on the show, because you already knew that I was having some things going on. Because we had that type of relationship.
Yeah, we did. We was up late talking.
Yeah.
Y'all, this just crossed a line nobody thought it would, because what started as whispers about a breakup, then turned into rumors of a pregnancy, then exploded into claims of a secret marriage, has now taken an even darker turn. This time, it's not just about betrayal, it's about intention, because insiders are now saying that Kandi Burruss isn't just reacting anymore. She's accusing. And the claim, it changes everything. According to sources, Kandi Burruss is now alleging that Simmons didn't just get involved with Todd Tucker. She allegedly set a situation in motion, a pattern, a setup, one that didn't start overnight, but built quietly step by step. Because the pregnancy rumors that shocked everyone, they're now being questioned, not denied. Questioned, with Kandi Burruss allegedly suggesting this may not be what it looks like on the surface. And that's where the story takes a sharp turn. Because if the timeline doesn't align, if the connections overlap the way people are now claiming, then this isn't just a messy relationship. It's something calculated, something controlled. And when you add in the past, the connection to Yo Gotti, the sudden shifts, the silence at key moments, the pattern starts to feel less random. So now the internet is split. Is this a woman exposing the truth, or a reaction to being pushed past her limit? Because if even part of this claim holds weight, then everything we thought we understood about this situation might not just be wrong, it is dangerous. Forget a fresh leak, the real drama ignited when the vibe completely shifted. Following days of radio silence, the energy turned toxic. Not through a public post, but in how this mess started unraveling. The clapbacks got lethal. The shade became surgical. In dead center of that hurricane stood Kandi Burruss. She was officially done playing the victim. According to the streets, she started connecting dots. And those dots formed a picture that dragged this circus into terrifying new territory. Not just a cheating scandal, not just hidden lies, but a full-blown agenda. Because insiders now claim Kandi Burruss isn't merely wondering what went down. She's dissecting exactly how it was staged. Specifically, the shady details regarding that pregnancy tied to Simmons and Todd Tucker. Initially, that baby news was just a headline. Now, it's being dragged as a strategic move. A move that allegedly served a motive much darker than a simple oops moment. Sources say Kandi Burruss is focusing on the blueprint rather than a random hookup. She's reportedly tracking the speed, how fast this fire spread, how the dates match her own marriage's demise, and how certain bonds tighten without any logical buildup. That's where the accusations turn into a thriller. Manipulation, blueprints, and puppetry, not as proven receipts, but as theories born from messy math. Because when you stack those receipts, the past whispers of a secret link, the messy overlap with Yo Gotti, the overnight rush toward a lifelong bond, the timeline looks scripted, not messy, it's tactical, and that precision demands an answer. Was this a love story or a heist? That is when the lethal blow landed. Sources claim Kandi Burruss has allegedly hinted that the pregnancy itself is not the miracle it seems. That the baby's daddy, the conception dates, and the media rollout might be a complete work of fiction. No receipts have dropped yet, but that one seed of doubt flips the entire script, because now we aren't just asking what happened, we're asking what's the real motive, and that's why the internet is currently losing its mind. Critics dismiss this as a bitter breakdown, a meltdown fueled by heartache and pure spite. Fans see a tactical takedown of a cycle that was hiding in plain sight, finally getting dragged into the light. That war of words is exactly what's fueling this fire, as every receipt gets checked against the receipts. When did the link with Kandi Burruss actually break? When did the cold shoulder turn into a freeze-out? When exactly did that pregnancy clock start ticking? And do those timestamps actually make sense? The more the internet digs, the more this whole story begins to crumble. not because we have the truth, but because the patterns are just too convenient, and convenience, even without a DNA test, is enough to keep the pitchforks out, which lands us right back at the million-dollar question. If the setup looks this intentional, if the dates keep clashing, if everyone's story keeps changing depending on who is talking, is this just a messy divorce drama, or are we looking at a scam that hasn't been fully exposed? This wasn't sparked by a tabloid leak. It was ignited by the math finally adding up. Because once that baby trap bomb was dropped, this circus didn't just get noisy. It got clinical, as messy fragments began locking together in a way that feels more like a riddle than a coincidence. And dead center of this storm is still Kandi Burruss. She isn't just spiraling anymore. According to the streets, she's gone full detective, replaying scenes that felt off at the time and arranging them into a timeline that, to her, screams calculated setup rather than unlucky accident. Because if you look back at the beginning of this mess, the red flags were waving long before the blogs caught wind. It starts with the quiet distancing, the weird schedule shifts, the lost in translation texts, and those nights where his location didn't match his excuses. On their own, these are just marital hiccups. But together, they build a case for a premeditated exit. That is where Simmons slides back into the frame, not just as the other woman, but as the main architect of the timeline being dragged. Insiders claim Kandi Burruss is obsessed with how this went from 0 to 60, from a casual hello to a full-blown emotional takeover. Kandi Burruss is weighing that alleged pregnancy against even Messier claims that refuse to die. The sheer velocity of this drama is under the microscope because a rush this intense is either soulmate energy or a total setup. And that fine line is exactly what the blogs are dissecting right now. Then you add the wild card that blows the whole lid off, the messy alleged overlap with Yo Gotti. If his receipts bleed into the start of this disaster, it gives us a second clock to watch. Not as a smoking gun, but as major shade. Because tangled timelines don't just cause headaches, they create a massive what if. A what if where two different scripts were being performed at the same time. A what if where everyone involved was playing a completely different game. And that is where the manipulation theory takes root, not as a verified headline, but as a conclusion drawn from the math. If the link-ups were that steady, if the dates are hitting too perfectly, if the escalation felt like a checklist rather than a whirlwind. And this cycle is exactly what's being dragged through the mud. This mess follows a perfect beat, the link-up, the soulmate talk, the rush to the finish line, and then the baby that anchors the back. That's why the current heat isn't on one mistake. It's on the strategy. Because if the playbook is this consistent, then the ending wasn't an accident. It was a destination. That is why Simmons is now the main character of this investigation. Not just as a friend, but as the alleged mastermind of the entire sequence. Sources say Kandi Burruss is questioning the why behind the when, not by shouting it, but by letting the receipts speak for themselves. Because when the timing is this perfect, intention is the only word left, even without a confession. And that is why this chapter feels different. It's no longer about the tea. It's about the tea set. That is where the old connection to Yo Gotti continues to wreck the whole narrative. His receipts aren't a separate story anymore, they're the backdrop, creating a secondary layer that either confirms the scam or breaks the theory. If his involvement bleeds into the start of this, it adds a new motive, a new witness, a new what if, and having too many questions is exactly why this won't end, because without one solid timeline, every scandalous version of events is fair game. That chaos is what's driving the current meltdown, not facts, but the maybe. Because maybe means every detail can be twisted. A fast-track romance is either true love or a trap. A baby is either a blessing or a contract. And when both can be true at once, the drama doesn't stop. It grows. That explosion is why we are all obsessed with the blueprint, not the individual lies. Because you can deny a gossip post. You can't deny a habit. Habits require answers. And right now, nobody is answering the phone. No clear statement, no receipts, no unified front to shut the blogs down. Just crumbs. And crumbs, when they're lined up, look like a trail. Whether it's a trap or not is still unverified, but the structure is definitely there. Which leads to the ultimate question that keeps popping up as the layers peel back. If the math stays this messy, if the dates keep clashing, if the blueprint stays the same even as the cast changes, is this a huge misunderstanding or has this been the plan from day one? And just when you think you've seen it all, the story gets even more twisted. Because this isn't cooling off, it's locking in. The rumors aren't flying away anymore. They're snapping into a grid that keeps pointing back to the same brutal truth. Every timestamp, every old video, every weird mood swing is being dragged back for one reason. Was this a mistake or was it the mission? And that silence? It's screaming. No press release, no calendar proof, no direct clapback to end the debate. Just fragments. And in this industry, fragments don't kill the story, they feed the beast. Because when the fans feel like they're being played, they'll go find the receipts themselves. Now, the comments section is the jury. They're connecting the dots. Who ghosted first? Who went quiet when the heat turned up? Who only started talking once the lawyers got involved? That is where the gossip turns into a federal case. Because reactions reveal the clock, and the clock reveals the motive. And if even a fraction of this timeline is real, then what we're watching isn't a breakup. It's the final act of a play that started months before anyone was even paying attention. So now, we're just waiting for one thing. Who breaks first and what lie do they tell? Because if the next excuse doesn't match the receipts we already have, this mess doesn't go away. It explodes. And if it blows up, then everything we've heard so far is just the teaser for a much bigger, much more calculated scam than anyone ever imagined. Underneath it all, Kandi Burruss might just be scratching the surface of a scheme that is far more sinister than we ever expected.